Hey there, welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Hi, friends. Welcome back. I am joined today by Andrew Geesbreght of PRAX. He is also here in Fort Worth with me, which I always love having a neighbor on the show. Yes. Go Horned Frogs. And so I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. You've had a fascinating trajectory with an exit, which I always love to talk about exits. I'm sure we'll get into that. But anyway, let's dive in. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. And thanks for the Fort Worth shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, tell us a little bit about PRAX, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. Just the high level. We're PRAX Performance. We're designed to support development of professionals. This is from onboarding to succession, from staff to CEO. Our main focus is soft skills, now referred to as power skills. So that's essentially, and we integrate our programs into existing HR platforms, whatever that company has already. So small to medium sized businesses. We're not a great fit for large businesses because most of them already have full departments that claim to do what we do. I say claim because we feel we do it better.
Sorry, squirrel brain for a moment. When did soft skills get rebranded to power skills? Because I am loving this.
No. It's I would say it's interchangeable, Lauren. I think I prefer power skills. I think soft skills really didn't do it justice. Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, it is very powerful. I love this.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, I will learn something new every day. I will be running with that one. Thank you.
You got it. It was taught to me too. Okay. So it was a gift to me as well.
Okay. Very cool. All right, let's do this. Okay. So Andrew, first things first, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
So I obviously know the name of your podcast. I did look up the definition of impatience, believe it or not. Right. And I found, I actually have it right here. I found two different definitions, one that I did not identify with and one that I very much did. So if it's okay, I want to read them. Webster's defines impatience as, the first one is intolerance with anything that impedes or delays. That's the first one. That one did not resonate with me, and I'll have a couple of examples of why. The second one really did. Restless desire for change and excitement. So that one I really identified with, and when I figured we would talk about impatience, and I didn't want to be such a bummer and say, "Oh, Lauren, I don't really identify that." So I do and I don't. The second one I absolutely feel every day, that desire for change and excitement. And we will talk about my squirrel brain and hyper creativity that has led to some successes, but I've had to work around them as well. But if you would have not gained me access or given me access to definitions, here's what I would have said. I would have said it took 7 years for my brother and I to build our first company, scale it, and then sell it. We're 5 years into PRAX, and I feel like we're just getting started, growing methodically. I'm in for the long haul. Took me 2 years to get my master's, and now I'm currently getting my PhD 5 years into that program. So I would say I'm quite patient because I believe that most, not all, most good things in the world take time. And now I do want to emphasize that I feel that restlessness, which I think is sort of the spirit of your of that change and excitement. And I just want to point out one thing, that PRAX is the Latin root of praxis, which means to practice. So one of our differentiators, and sort of frankly my dissatisfiers with the leadership development industry, is that they are often peddling shortcuts. Let's take this single session and let's listen to an inspiring lecture. But you and I both know that when Tuesday rolls around, that doesn't result in change. If you think about anything, you want to get better at piano, golf, any hobby, painting, a relationship, they all require practice and patience. So that's my maybe more than you wanted. I did want to ask you. I did want to ask you this. Maybe people ask you this, but impatience. It's obviously catchy and memorable. But aside from that, like, what inspired that very specific word for the name of your podcast?
Well, that's a great question. So I think it comes from it comes from myself, my own experience, and then just working with a lot of entrepreneurs in my, 2+ decades of work, in that entrepreneurs almost to a one are just so passionate about their idea, and they're just, yesterday would be great. Thank you. It's like once we have this idea for something, we're ready to see it live in an existence. And I think we definitely underestimate how long it takes to do something. But, we have this, you also have to be kind of an incurable optimist as well, to continue to get up every day and keep doing it when, you're getting bopped in the head and knocked over time and time again. And, a little delusional on top of that. But yeah, just that.
I totally agree.
But there aren't many just intrinsically patient entrepreneurs either, that are just like, oh, well, I have all the time in the world. Like, it's, I think entrepreneurs know that we only have so much time on this planet, and we're ready to go to market, and we're ready to see if people are going to, pick up what we're putting down and join the fervor and mission. And it just kind of, it sort of just struck me as like, yes, this is something that actually what really happened was, my team really wanted me to do another podcast. I had one previously, and I was just like, oh my gosh, about what? I don't want to talk about PR on a podcast. I want to talk about something else. And I love entrepreneurs. And a friend of mine said, the best advice she ever got about a podcast was doing one about a problem you're trying to solve for yourself. And I was like, ding.
I think that's really, thanks for sharing. I think that's interesting. My initial reaction, first of all, I think it's a genius name because it's memorable. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, let me just speak for myself. Let me not even project anybody else's feelings, that I really do think patience is a virtue in entrepreneurship, because oftentimes that excitement can either lead to burnout or skipping to the next idea before it's fully flushed. And I'm not talking about like 10 years. I'm talking about like sitting in a problem for longer than what's comfortable. And I think that does require maybe a different word other than patience. But so I find it it's almost a polarizing term, which I think is great. And I already mentioned it. I connect with it in a really unique way. And then there's other parts of it that sort of bring up negative emotions. Like, feels like old, like 1.0 me was impatient to a fault. So anyway, just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Well, and to carry on further, I think as entrepreneurs and leaders mature, and, some of us are in a lot of therapy, wink, and then just, grow in our business, we have to create structure to engineer patience for success. So, for instance, my company, we follow, Traction EOS. So it's like we have these quarterly goals and rocks, and that's what we're all working toward. And that helps create patience, because like, I can't just upset the apple cart. It's like, well, no, we've agreed to this, and this is what we're all working toward. So it really helps minimize the shiny object syndrome and keeps us all rowing in one direction. Cause me as a solopreneur 8 years ago was just like, bing, bing, bing. But I may still feel surges of excitement and impatience, but I have to kind of counteract that too.
Yeah. I identify with that 100%.
Okay, off to a philosophical start.
Yeah, that's right. That's what you get with me, unfortunately.
I like it. Thanks for asking. So what I want to ask you next then is there anything that you are impatient about right now?
Yes, there is. So our primary business channel for for several years, I'd say 3 or 4 years, was just for-profit businesses. And what we heard pretty frequently over that time period, excuse me, is that the executives or leaders that would come to our programs, they would often remark that they wish their kids could do something like this. And we heard that a couple of times, and I was like, it was almost like a yeah. Like, yes, of course, then that'd be great. And I would say about 6 months ago, we got a very thoughtful, it wasn't just a side comment. We have one of our OG clients that's been with us for almost 5 years. Their COO emailed me, took time out of his day, this long email, and said, I really want you to consider a family version of PRAX. And so I took that to our team and I said, I know we've been sort of hearing about this for a couple of years, sort of, these little, not offhanded comments, but just like little observations and praises and so forth. But this one is like really insightful and well thought out. So I read the email and I said, I think we really need to build something for teens. And as you know, there's always a lot going on, and it's easy to say yes to things that you shouldn't say yes to. But what I'm impatient about, I think in the most positive way of that term, is I really want to build something. We're in the process right now. I want to build something that is sort of like a watered down version of our Praxian concepts. That watered down is the wrong way of putting it. Something that can be digestible by 16-year-old. Because we live in like neuroscience and we live in this practice-based atmosphere, and we use a lot of big words, and adults can digest those words. But a 14, 15, 16-year-old is not interested in how elaborate the language is. They want something that can help them. And it's relatable to them. So I'm impatient about that. We've been building that now for, I'd say 4 or 5, almost 6 months since I read that email out, and our staff was like, yeah, let's do it. So we have, we have we're calling it PRAX U. This summer, and we're doing our first launch, and it can't get here fast enough. I'm really excited about it. But it's an arduous process. There's no way to microwave, certainly not the way we do it, these programs. So that would be my best answer for something I'm impatient about.
Right. Well, and I imagine, I think again, with impatience and entrepreneurs and so forth, it was a lot of times it's like, we'll just go and we'll iterate. Something like this, you probably need to figure it out first.
we're that's a great point. We're consulting child psychologists. We are going slow, I think would be we have the learning frameworks that we could have plugged something in that we could have brought to market. But we're taking our time with this. We also, our clients have come to expect a high caliber. And that has slowed us down because we've taken our time, but that's who we are. And so I don't want to deviate from that.
Right. Yeah. You have your integrity and quality as your governor.
That's right. Yeah. We're not going to be iterating with 16-year-olds. It needs to be ready. It needs to be ready.
And I would expect that as a parent. And so, tell me about your team. You say you work with your brother. So you have a family, a family business, and then you have folks as well, a part of that.
Yep, we do. My brother and I mentioned our business prior that we scaled and exited. He and I were partners then, and I stayed on and worked for this private equity firm for several years. And then we got the band back together and started PRAX. And basically looked into our little black book of people who we want to be in the bunker with and hired those people. So we have a small, tight-knit team, and then we've got a bunch of independent contractors that we work with for various things, marketing, and sometimes we have licensed professional counselors that have full practices, but do some guide and coaching work with us. So PRAX is one of their like primary side hustles. So we've got full-time folks, and then also lots of independent contractors that we work with.
And then from the client side, who do y'all primarily work with?
Yeah, I would say the best way to think about that, or how I think about it, is 50 to 250 employees, potentially up to 500 employees, small mid-market. So I think nothing less than 10 million in revenue, up to 500 million in revenue is appropriate for us. Again, I'm not trying to talk ourselves out of business. If you have $501 million in revenue, you're like, well, PRAX doesn't want us. The only problem with that, as I've mentioned, is that there's when you get that big, they have full resources and departments, and whether it's working or not, we're sort of viewed as the enemy.
Right.
And so we fit really nicely with businesses in that range that have, 150 employees. They're doing 100 million, and they have some resources, but they want somebody who this is their core competence, is to train and develop people. So they can focus on their business, and that's where PRAX steps in. When you get into these really large, especially private equity backed businesses, they've got entire like people services and learning development departments, and they feel that it's a core competence. And we don't want to compete with that. We want to come in and work with businesses who value what we do. So that's generally. Now, I will say we've got some clients that have 20 employees and they do 25 million in revenue, and they've been with us for 3 years. We just do less work with them because they don't have as many people.
Okay. What would be who do y'all kind of go head to head with competition wise? Like how do people like, other than internal teams, like how do folks like position their services compared to y'all?
It's a great question. I'll say we have 3 competitors. I already mentioned one. We have internal competitors. It's usually, not always, it's usually the HR and people services department. And this is not, if you're listening to this right now, you're not my enemy. I've just been in enough rooms where when we ask like a deficit question, or we ask an insightful question about their total cost of ownership, and their impact scores, and HR people occasionally feel like I'm interrogating them, which I am not interrogating them. I'm trying to understand how we can provide value. So I would say one of our number one competitors is your internal systems, and not always, but that is a competitor. Outside of that, one-on-one executive coaching, even though we don't believe that is competition, because we're a curriculum-based program. I really want to emphasize that word. We have executive coaching built in, but we are a curriculum-based cohort-style company. So we have executive coaching built into our curriculum, but we didn't hang a shingle and we're doing one-on-one coaching, and that is our primary offering. And again, I'm not trying to put down that profession. I use an executive coach. We're just not selling the same thing. But when we talk to people, a lot of times they'll do these like little mental shortcuts, and they'll go, "So, you're an executive coaching?" No, we're much more than that. Although we have that as an aspect, if that makes sense.
One of the arrows in your quiver.
That's right. Yes. And then there are a few, and I do mean a few, businesses, one in Dallas, and there's a few other national companies that do what we do, where they have 10-week, 6-month, and year-long training and development programs, which is our framework. Again, our name is PRAX. It's practice. So we don't have any single session workshops where people can check a box and then go back to their work. We almost demand practice. We believe that the power skill that you work on requires practice, just like playing the violin or developing a relationship. So we're really not for businesses that are looking for that, hey, I just need to get this box checked and get this off my plate, which, to be honest with you, Lauren, takes us out of 70% of the businesses out there that are looking for that. It's more of a lip service for growth, but they don't actually want to engage and invest in practice. And there's a couple of easy ways for us to determine that really quickly on the front end.
Cool. Okay. So switching gears a little bit, how do you fuel yourself as a leader? Like, are you a books kind of guy?
Sour Patch Kids.
Sugar. I'm assuming I would guess you're a big reader.
I am. Yeah.
Any books or podcasts or YouTube videos or TED Talks that have been particularly impactful to you as you've developed this business and you help others?
I'm a big fan of The Impatient Entrepreneur. Everyone should. No, I'll move from least interesting to maybe interesting. So as I mentioned, I'm getting my PhD and I'm starting my dissertation year, which if you're familiar, I'm reading a lot of case studies and I'm reading research. I'm not actually reading books because the dissertation process, they actually don't care about books. They care about raw research. And so I'm sifting through a lot of that. So I would say at the end of the day, I'm not exactly looking forward to Dr. Seuss or whatever it might be. But I am almost always reading some form of neuroscience learning. And there's a lot of different recommendations. I can email you and your listeners can feast. There's a lot on there, out there. Just go to Amazon and there's so much good stuff. In fact, if you're looking for something sort of silly, Neuroscience for Dummies actually is great. It's a great way. It's a great way to start, but there's a ton of great books out there. In fact, if I were to go back, my PhD is going to be in psychology. I would probably get it in neuroscience. If I'm being honest, I'm too far in, but I'm fascinated. I'm also, I'm reading, Harvard Business Review's, must reads for 2025. I read them every year, when they come out. As you can imagine, the previous year, it's AI and a bunch of other things. So I'm making my way through that. And then I think, if you think of this as fun, you may not. I'm almost always reading something that is entertaining for me. And, are you familiar with Aesop's Fables? So there's a book I found, that has all of them. They're over 700. Wow. It's a really thick book. Put it together. It's titled Aesop's Fables. And found it in a neat little, physical bookstore. You can believe that those still exist. And I'm making my way through it. I think there's 4 or 5 pretty silly ones. And then one that was awesome. And it's worth it for me to move through the 3 or 4 or 5 that I don't connect with to find one. And they're usually like very, very leadership and performance based. It is amazing, how little has changed in several thousand years. Now some of the references are obviously extremely dated, but the spirit of it is really spot on. I really love them. And they're short and they're fun. And, they take you out of the normal 2025, 2026, modern day example. So I enjoy it.
Right. Yeah, I do. I've in college, I spent a lot of time studying the classics and it's like, it holds up. Yeah.
It does. It really does. It really does.
So
what about you? What do you read?
Oh, well, thank you. I read quite a bit. That's how I can't go to sleep unless I'm reading, but I tend to read a lot of, fiction, and not particularly serious fiction, but I usually have a business book going. So right now I'm listening to Brené Brown's Strong Ground, which is pretty good. She references a lot of performance folks like coaches and things like that, which is,
I love Brené Brown. She's amazing.
Yeah. So I was like, little known fact, she wrote this for me personally, no one else.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that's right. That's the best author when it feels like it's just for you.
Nice So that's, we're actually going to do it as a book club for the team. So it's like, there's feels like a lot in there as far as, being human, but, still having good boundaries and holding people to high standards and as well as ourselves. So
do you have an all-time favorite business book that you're like, I can reread it and it's amazing that you'd recommend to me? Oh
gosh, I have a list. Actually, I have a spreadsheet. I'll send it to you.
What's one? Okay, yeah, send it to me. I am very interested. I'm very interested.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot, so I'm trying to remember.
No. It's all good.
I'll share my list because I did actually
good.
created an asynchronous book club for my team, just like breaking it down with by what is it, marketing, is it leadership, all that, and then they're awarded points by how meaty is it, and they can accrue PTO when they read them.
It's a wonderful idea.
Thank you. Actually, I don't know if this is my favorite, but the one that comes to mind, which I think has just kind of sweeping corollaries, no matter your industry, is unreasonable hospitality. I just really enjoyed, taking, if you think about the restaurant industry, but how we treat others and make them feel seen, and surprise and delight. And it's actually probably one of the first business books to make me cry.
Really?
It's just the way he talks about his family and his mother in particular.
Unreasonable hospitality. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah,
this is an example of that. And goodness, St. Regis, that hotel chain. Mm-hmm. My wife and I did an anniversary, and we went to we don't do this often, but we went to a bougie St. Regis hotel, and they'd never been to a hotel like that. And I walked in and they said, "Hello, Mr. Geesbreght."
Wow. They looked it up.
I don't know how they did it. They figured out, I never talked to them. Mm-hmm. They figured out how to pronounce my last name. And I looked over at my wife and I go, these people are not messing around. Like that was, first of all, that is unreasonable for them to know how to say my last name. Very unreasonable. And nothing changed the couple of days that we were there. They were on top of everything, anticipated everything, surprise and delight. I just wrote that down that was their mission, was to do that. And it was incredible.
Yeah. It's a good, audiobook, as well, if you do those, cause he reads it. So. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
If you're like, my eyeballs are tired from reading case studies, I just want to listen to something.
Well, yeah, they are. I'll tell you what, they are tired.
Okay. So let's go to our vulnerability corner. Tell us about a time in your business life where things are going great, you're trucking along, and then the rug gets pulled out from underneath you and you're like, oh, okay, I am not sure we're actually going to survive this. But then it turns out to be one of the best things that could have happened.
Well, when my brother and I started our original business, it was a healthcare services business. We sold to our largest client. I'll leave their name out of it. We sold to our largest client, and we had an amazing relationship with them. During our earnout, so after we sold, our parent company that acquired us got acquired by a huge private equity firm. So, and then several years later, that team that acquired our business retired, turned over. So in the course of 2 or 3 years, I'm reporting to all different people than the ones who decided to buy us. And I say that because this is relevant for my story here. When we started PRAX, it felt very natural, my brother and I, to go back to our acquirer and say, because we were doing healthcare services. And so we went back to them and said, hey, it's Andrew and Alex again, and all the CEO, and this is a $5 billion company. We had an excellent relationship. We're emailing them back and forth. We have PRAX now. We want to dive in and help develop your people. And we were met with an extremely warm introduction, so much so that and I'll give them credit for this, they sent 12 or 13 of their high-powered executives to our office here in Fort Worth from all over the United States. I mean, I don't know how much they spent on it. And they gave us a full day to pitch PRAX. And it went extremely well. And we got great feedback. Well, if you've heard the term time kills deals, the punchline is we just never did anything with them. And after 2, 3, 4 months of sort of negotiating and figuring out being bounced around, we'll talk to them and da da da. And then it was like, well, we're doing this right now. And it just sort of fizzled out. And I was very disappointed. I was extremely disappointed. My hopes got up. My expectations were high. I felt like this was going to be our first anchor contract. And it certainly looked like that was the case. I wasn't being delusional. I was sort of led to believe that was going to be the case. And it didn't happen. And it felt like for a moment, it felt like the sky was falling situation. Now, that was 4 years ago. And it's more than the silver lining, because here's what would have happened, Lauren. I'm convinced that, and by the way, at that point they were PE backed, so it wasn't the good old crew, even though they were huge then that bought us. Is that they would have controlled PRAX. They would have become our biggest client. And then let's say we were successful, which I believe we would have. I would have been on planes to their corporate office, bi-weekly, doing quarterly business reviews. I would have been drawn back into the thing that frankly I hated. I loved all of the entrepreneurship. I loved 0 to 100 million, but that 100 million to 500 million, and then that 500 million to 5 billion, that area, I don't love that space. And that's the space that they're in, and that's their framework. So it was, my perspective now is that would have been the worst possible thing for PRAX. It would have been early on financially good, and then long term it would have completely distorted who we are.
Right. Golden handcuffs.
Yeah, I mean, and it just we wouldn't have been able to experience the creativity and let me just put it like this: the family channel that doesn't exist. No way. They're not, they wouldn't be in. I would bring that up and they would say, no, we need you to work on this with our directors in the Southeast region. I mean, and they would have had the control to do that. And so anything that popped up in my head that I wanted to pursue with fervor, a word that you used earlier, I wouldn't have been able to do.
We use a lens a lot of time with our clients is, we're partners, not employees. And that's an important dynamic that needs to be respected, or we can't do what we need to do for our clients or for us as for our business. And it sounds like, you would have been in a position where it's like, yeah, it's a contract, but you're an employee, like you're doing what they want versus what you believe is right.
And it's not even their fault, Lauren. It's how
money talks.
They're Goliath. Yeah. It's not any individual. It's the machine is so big that there's expectations.
Right. Yeah. Not the same thing, but back in the day, I remember, when I was in the dating pool and I was, out and about, and my mom was like, be careful, if you marry for money, you earn every penny. And it's kind of like, if you take that deal, you're going to earn it.
Yeah, that's good advice.
So going back to when you were a kid, first of all, were you an entrepreneur as a kid? Did you have, a little business here and there?
No, I was a lost little boy. I had a lot of energy, but no, I wasn't like doing lemonade stands and so forth. I was doing, theatrical plays for my parents. I was into all sorts of creative stuff, but no, I wasn't trying to make money. No, that wasn't necessarily and what's interesting, it's a little bit of a deviation, is I still don't primarily, even though I've been fortunate, that isn't my primary, to my detriment sometimes. Long term, I think it's good, but because I create something that I help create something that's beautiful and impactful and works. And if it's only money focused, it dilutes what I can bring. But you got to also make money. But no, I wasn't walking around at 6 years old saying, buy my Hot Wheels.
Those kids crack me up, but yeah.
They do. Yeah.
So what was something that maybe people told you was a weakness or you perceived it as one, but today is actually your superpower?
My dad passed away in 2019. He was my hero, but I remember him saying to me as a kid, Andrew, this is not a gymnasium, and that was like his little line for calm down. And so the best way I think I can answer it is that it wasn't necessarily said to me as a weakness, but the persistent comments that I got about my creative energy wasn't necessarily rewarded. Right. Let's put it like that. It was inconvenient for adults. And I get it. I mean, as a parent now, like I do understand that. And I think I'm unique in a way where I have compassion for hyper kids. I mean, I really do. And I wouldn't even say that my parents called me hyper. They had to deal with a lot, but as I grew up and it was teenager and in college, I underperformed academically. Some of that is discipline, but I had lots of horsepower, but it was all unchanneled. It was just, it was no brakes, no steering wheel. And that was frustrating for, I think, people around me and for me too. So that was a weakness. Now I've had to, I think you referenced this earlier. I've had to really work on, if you can call that horsepower. Just I don't know how else to think of it. Is that like that creative energy is a real strength, and it is a superpower for me now. Sure. And one of the things that I do for PRAX is I present. Occasionally, I'm asked to be a guide. Which I can do, but we have people that are better at it than me. But when I'm in my zone of genius, I'm an architect of our curriculum, and it's where I can apply all of my creativity and I can look over here and look over here, and I can do all this dimensional thinking, and I can think creatively about how to deliver rote content that people have heard over and over again in a really unique and meaningful way. And I feel like my brain's on fire and being fueled, and it's fun. And 14-year-old Andrew doing that, people were like, okay, just calm, just settle down. And I heard a lot of, you need to learn to, that kind of thing. And it's not that they were wrong. It's just after, years of hearing that, you think it's a weakness.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the best way I can think of to describe that.
What would you tell if you could, time travel back to teen you, who's sort of grappled with being told you're kind of too much, ultimately is the message you're getting. What would you say to yourself?
Gosh, the real answer is I wouldn't have listened. So it could be because I had awesome parents and they were telling me good things that I would have told myself, like, take a deep breath and slow down, like every once in a while, or, channel this. And they would use words like discipline, but what they really meant is you don't have to follow every idea and fancy and thought. And I've learned to control that now. But the reality is I'm not sure I would have listened to anything that I said.
Well, there's that.
I don't think I would have.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So you're in the shoot with your brother for a second time. I'm assuming you enjoy the sibling dynamic.
Love it. I do. Yeah. Well, I get a lot of people. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I get a lot of people whose jaws drop and they're like, family business, I can never do that. I'm like, well, I'm on my second run here. And I do want to say this is that I'm in business and partners with my brother, but there are a lot of people in my family I would not do business with. So I think there's an assumption that I would work with anybody in my family. That is absolutely not true. And that's not because I don't love them. It's because my brother and I work extremely well together. We have conflict, but we know how to resolve, and we have very short memories as it relates to things. And we have an abundance of love and respect for each other as well. And we also have unique strengths, which are complemented more times than not. Yes, sometimes they clash. Sometimes they do. The best marriages are the same. But I wouldn't change that at all. So yeah, it is hard. But I can't imagine not working with him. Can't imagine.
That's beautiful. I love my brother. I would do anything with him. He makes movies, awesome. But I adore him. That's awesome. How do y'all like in the business itself? Are is one of you more the face and one of you more behind the scenes? Are you equally how do y'all sort of divide and conquer?
Yeah. Well, in our healthcare services business, I was all architect and operator. So I ran our executive team. I was everything internal. We used to sort of say he would make promises to clients. So he would sell, and then I needed to make them true. So he would make promises and I would make them true. Obviously, it was more nuanced than that, but that was essentially it. These days, so he was CEO and I was COO. These days, we don't call ourselves co-CEO, but we sort of operate like that. We really refer to ourselves as we're founders of PRAX. We don't actually have a CEO. We have a COO. And she manages both of us quite well.
The chief cat herder.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. No, she's extremely skilled. But now we are both client facing. I would say I'm still more on the architecture side, and he is still a little bit more on the sales side. He's a real pioneer and ahead of most. I think the cliche way of thinking about it, or the metaphor, whatever it is, peeking around the corner. I hear that sometimes in businesses. It's kind of a silly imagery, but yeah, he's able to see things before other people. And I wouldn't say that's my strength. Once he sees it, I can build it. And our team knows how to build it. And so we're a really good mix. But yeah, it's more overlap now than it was before.
Okay. And then how did y'all decide to do this second entity?
It's my professional existential crisis. So we did what almost every entrepreneur wants to do, which is exit your company. So we did that, but no one ever talks about what happens after that. And what happens after that is this. I was 39 and no, sorry, I was 36 when after the earnout, I was closer to 39. And I'm looking around and going, okay, that was amazing. Now what?
Yeah.
and so really the crisis was really it was an inflection point. And there was two choices. There was a lot more than that, but it felt like two choices. So I left out this part. The business that acquired us at this time still had some remaining people. They offered me a pretty cushy executive position running a very large department. And that would have been the safe and easy route. I could have taken that. I didn't. What I ultimately wanted to do was work on hearts and minds rather than P&Ls and all the things that I'd done for 10 years before. I always felt like my favorite part of our business was the people side. I always believed, unlike I think some leaders that say this but don't mean it, is that people actually are your greatest asset. And it is an incredible privilege, unearned in many cases, to help lead and develop them. And so watching what worked and what didn't work there, and making lots of, spending too much money on a keynote speaker and nothing happened. And then doing, and I'm very public about, I don't like personality exams. I'm in psychology and I don't like personality exams. Spending all this money on assessments and just nothing coming out of it. And then the stuff that really worked was the slow, boring, impactful, practice of these power skills over long periods of time. That's how people changed. And so, that like was my epiphany. It was like, that's what I want to do. I want to help businesses that were in the crap like we were do that, because that's not their core competence. They're trying to run their business and we want to help, develop their people. So, we've changed it, but one of our taglines used to be that people transform companies, PRAX transforms people. And I believe that. That is what we do. But that was kind of the inspiration.
Okay, very cool. Leave us with some advice for our listeners to make their lives stronger and better today. Or at least to start, since it's a long journey.
Yeah. If you have heard me speak anywhere, you've probably heard me say this, but I will say it again because it's worth repeating. There's two meta-analyses done on human satisfaction and contentment. There's lots of work that's been done, but sort of aggregated all these studies and put them together. And one of the studies revealed that there was one thing above all that predicted contentment for human beings, and that was living your values. And everything else was sort of subordinate to that. And that to me is really impactful. But then you add these other studies, and one of them it's actually referred to as the octogenarian study, where they interviewed all these people in their 80s and said, what would you do differently if you could go back? And their biggest regret was not living their values. So we have these two comprehensive studies on human behavior and satisfaction, and they're both saying if you care about feeling satisfaction at any point, and certainly the end of your life, you need to understand what they are and actively pursue your values. And it's one of the main things that we focus on in PRAX. It's always what we start with. And we get a lot of people who are like, yeah, I know what my values are. And we have a bunch of really effective ways because if you're human, there's dissonance. There's a difference between what you think is your value and what you're actually doing. Right. And I'll leave, I guess, your listeners with this. It's one of my favorite all-time quotes, is the goal of our lives is to reduce the gap between our actual and aspirational self. And all of that starts with your values.
Beautiful. I'm not sure who said it, but there's also like actions.
Carl Rogers.
Well, I was going to say,
I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. Actions express priorities. So it's like, what you say, but that's like, how are you actually spending your time? And that's where the rubber really meets the road. Well, Andrew, this has been so fun. I'm so glad people get to just, listen to us gab. So you and me, but other people are going to listen. If someone wants to get in touch, how will they find you?
You can go to either PRAX Leadership or PRAX Performance, PRAX Fort Worth, lots of ways. And I'm on LinkedIn and doing serious and silly videos routinely, and really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague or give us a 5-star review on Apple. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a future episode? Head over to theimpatienttrepreneurpod.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. Can't wait to see you next time.